Thanks very much for joining me here today. As was mentioned before, my name is Philip Crothers from the Critical Technology Standards section in the Department of Industry, Science and Resources. I'm here today to talk about the effects of geostrategic competition on standards and their downstream implications. So I'm just wondering, in the room, have we got many people that are working in standards or who have an interest in standards today? So, okay, great. We've got Andrew there. I believe we've met, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, my mistake. Anyway, well, it's good that we've got some interest, and hopefully I keep you engaged. I'm just going to move through. Thank you very much for that lovely acknowledgement of country. That was quite nice. I'm, of course, from Ngunnawal country, and I'd like to also pass on my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who might be joining us here today. Oh, sorry. I am using this. There we go. All right. Okay. So I'm very happy to be speaking at Accreditation Matters 2024. It's hosted by NADA, an organisation that plays a crucial role in ensuring the quality, reliability and competitiveness of products and services in the domestic and international marketplace. As you're no doubt well aware, accreditation is a formal procedure where an authority recognises competency to carry out specific tasks, and NADA's commitment to using international standards for accreditation only strengthens their credibility and the global acceptance of their evaluations. So it's within this context that I think it's really important to relay to you the increasingly contested theatre of geostrategic competition that is the standards development ecosystem. And I think it's important for you to hear about the effects that can occur downstream of this particular process. And so that's what I want to talk about today. On the screen here, I just want to point out just a few of the standards that NADA uses in its accreditation process. Today, well, I'm going to go through this in a bit, but 1725 and 15189 is very important, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a focus on those ones today. Okay, so this presentation is going to take us through just an overview of the standards ecosystem and DISE's kind of view of that ecosystem, what's in scope for us. Then I'm going to go through just a number of, well, I'm going to take you through the United States, the US, the European, and China's separate strategies. I'm going to kind of drill down a little bit on China because I think that's it's quite important. It's kind of causing a lot of the shifts, driving a lot of the shifts. And then I'm going to talk about some of the downstream risks that may result from this, with a focus on laboratory accreditation. And then finally, I'm going to go into the benefits of a collaborative approach, and then what our department, the Department of Industry, is doing about this. And I'm going to press play here because, okay, all right. So the next slide here, okay, is the background on our team. Excuse me, I'm taking a drink of water. So my team, what we do is, as I mentioned before from the Department of Industry, we engage fairly closely with industry on technology standards topics. So where they arise, we will prioritize them across government through a number of different channels. And we also have a number of different international relationships that we maintain. So we have, we're a member of the Quad standards subgroup. So that's with India, Japan and the United States. We also have a number of bilateral relationships that we maintain as well, which we think is very important. And with that, we're a source of information for both government and industry stakeholders. So it's a very focused section or very focused capability within the department. Next slide. This is the standards ecosystem, or at least what's in scope for the Critical Technology Standards program. Now, up on the screen here, you're going to be very familiar with probably a number of the standards development organisations that are in that box up there. On the left, we've got the ISO, we've got the IEC. Where their interests align, where they overlap, they've got these joint technical committees. So JTC1 is where standards such as your AI standards are developed. Now, the European Union, it's a little bit different. Their approach to standardization is characterized by a co-regulated system between the public and private sectors. Now, their aim is promoting the economic integration and innovation within the European single market. The modern European approach, which has been adopted globally for standardization, was instrumental in addressing a lot of technical barriers to trade and standardizing the product approval process. However, the European Union is facing challenges from consortia and also the rise in, international consortia and the rise in China in international standards setting. They developed the 2022 European Strategy on Standardization, which acknowledges the global race for digital leadership and emphasizes a need to promote European interests in the development, or European interests and values through standardization, I should say. The strategy proposes restoring the influence of European stakeholders in European standards organizations, or ESOs, by excluding non-European players from ruling on matters of strategic interest. And I think that that last point is probably quite important for people who might come from multinationals, who might be playing in that particular market. And then we go into China. And I'm going to drill down into China a little bit here and talking about their strategy. Right. And I'm going to start off with a bit of a history lesson. And I hope everybody was prepared for a bit of a history lesson on Chinese standards before they're coming in here. So prior to '78, China's standardization system was government controlled. But with their economic reopening in the 1980s, China started to engage with the ISO, and they introduced the 1988 standardization law. Now that structured standards into 4 different groupings: national, industry, local, and enterprise levels of standards. Now, initially, China was a standards taker, and they adopted international standards. However, after joining the World Trade Organization in about 2001, and they started to face new barriers, and they started to shift from that standards taker approach to a catch-up strategy, which focused on the development of, which focused on indigenous or Chinese innovation. So the Standards Administration of China, or the SAC, they released their 11th 5-year development plan for standardization in 2006. That was the first major update to that 1988 standardization law. And that emphasized a shift, or that sort of emphasized standardization as a basis for innovation in a number of key sectors. And with that, there was a market-oriented shift. But with that tilt towards the market, Chinese enterprise didn't quite, well, they still followed the Communist Party priorities. And their first major, it probably undermined their first major attempts at international standards. And as a result, they were met with fairly limited success. And some examples of that are WAPI. I don't know if anybody's heard of WAPI. It was a Wi-Fi standard that they tried to introduce a number of years ago, and SCDMA, which is a 3G standard. Now, these are tech standards, and I know I'm talking about tech to possibly to the wrong audience, but I think it's really important in highlighting the lessons that China learned for the next stage in the standardization process, which was moving from that top-down model to a much more hybrid approach. And so the latest strategy for developing a national standard system was released in 2021, and that underscores China's determination to gain global recognition for its technological capabilities. Now, that 2021 strategy, it takes a two-track approach. Now, the first track focuses on increasing engagement with with existing international standards organizations and encourages Chinese firms to actively participate and lead in innovation in those spaces. And if you're working in standards development, you might see fairly large delegations from the Chinese areas as a result of that. But you're probably also seeing large delegations from Europe and the US as well. So it's a sort of a rebalancing part of this shift. And China has a target of an 85% harmonization rate between domestic and international standards. And they aim, but what's important with that sort of that delta, that 15% that is not harmonized, is that they're aiming to make non-harmonized Chinese domestic standards accessible to their foreign partners. And to help align what is an increasingly complex supply chain that goes into China. Now, the result of this is an increasing influence over the international standardization system through the promulgation or through the spread of de facto Chinese industry standards. Now, that's the first track that we talk about. Now, the second track aims to create an international standardization system based on Chinese values. Now, it's looking at expanding cooperation with countries through the Belt and Road Initiative and also through economic relationships as well, or economic groupings such as BRICS, so the Brazil, Russia, that particular grouping of countries. Now, this track, it demonstrates China's intent to leverage its growing geostrategic influence to establish a separate system of international standardization based on Chinese values. So in other words, China's two-track approach involves engaging with the existing system led by the US and the EU, while also developing the political and the economic space for a Chinese alternative. So that's potentially quite a big shift there. And the plan is focused on improving domestic standardization, innovation, cybersecurity, and quality. Excuse me. To accelerate the conversion to new technologies and to national standards, this is what I think is important for people in this room, is that China is planning to establish, and they are establishing, government laboratories for testing, inspection, and certification. I don't know if that's news to anybody. I think that's, everybody knows that. But it's there to, it's to develop market-oriented standardization services. But the question is, and I think the question we should be asking ourselves is, will this eventually influence laboratory and pathology accreditation in Australia? I think that's a question that we need to start asking. Now the answer is, I don't really know whether or not it is going to have an effect, or what these effects are completely going to be. Right now, CNAS, or what is it? CNAS stands for the China National Accreditation System. Now they're using ISO, IEC 17025 for laboratory accreditation. I'm not quite clear, and maybe Andrew, maybe you can fill me in, what is being used for pathology lab accreditation in China. Are they using? They are using 189? Okay. I mean, this is a really good thing, right? I think that's great. It shows a harmonization of standardization in this particular marketplace, and that's something that we should try to maintain. But in a world of laboratory science, a disjointed international standards ecosystem can really trigger a cascade of significant consequences, potentially impacting the accreditation of laboratories on a global scale. This is something that we really don't want to see, because we can imagine a world where each country and each region adopts its own unique set of accreditation criteria. The patchwork of standards could lead to a landscape of inconsistency, where laboratory quality, performance, reliability can vary greatly from one place to another. Disparity could sow seeds of doubt, making it really challenging to trust results from different countries, from different labs. Which is why mutual recognition of accreditation between countries is important, as they could become quite a complex maze of bureaucracy. And with varying standards and accreditation criteria, laboratories seeking accreditation, multiple jurisdictions, they could find themselves tangled in a lot of red tape. Can duplicate a lot of efforts and can incur a lot of unnecessary costs. So I think just something to be cognizant of. This is a potential problem of fragmentation in a standard system. And I could go on about this, but I'm not, because I think you kind of get the point. And I think you understand that it's important to prevent these potential downstream effects. And that's bringing in lots more government engagement, which we didn't have before. And then with that information, we can start sharing that across industry. And we're a dedicated point of contact. I'm going to stand over here because I think it's just easier on technology standards for our industry stakeholders. But for those that are working in standards, we can offer tailored briefings effectively for your standards committees. We can, if there's something that comes up in your area and we think this is something that we would like to talk to you about, we can tell you about that, and we can give you a brief on that. And then finally, we have a security clearance program, which is where we bring people in. We provide security clearances at the NV1 level. Have I got 1 minute left? 1 minute. Okay. Oh no. And we can provide classified briefings in your area. I think the last thing here is, and thank you very much for your time, is effectively how our work with our international partners helps in facilitating information flows across the ecosystem. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to that. That's sort of the last component, kind of brings everything together a little bit. But I think I need to stop there. But I want to say thank you very much for being a lovely audience. It's been great.